Hi, it's Jane Garapick here, and today I want to talk about a trap that so many of us fall into. I did too, back in my early dating days. It happens when we meet that guy, that amazing guy, that makes our heart flutter. The one that gives us those butterflies. The one that we can just feel that chemistry every time we talk to him. It makes us completely stop even noticing any other men. All we want to do is put everything we've got into making him ours. We've set our sights on him, and he's the only one we want. But in reality, this doesn't work, and more often it causes the exact opposite of what we really want, because he starts to pull away and get distant. Now here's why. If he's the only one we're focusing on, right, he becomes the focus of our love life. He becomes the one every other guy we might consider has to measure up to. He becomes the one we pin all our hopes and dreams on. He's it. He becomes the one we talk about to our girlfriends, the one we constantly think about. He's the one whose texts fill us with excitement. And when he calls, makes us jump and respond right away, right? He's the one we cancel other dates for when he finally calls and asks if we want to come over to his place. He's the one we give the power to tear at our self-esteem and wreak havoc on what little self-confidence we started out with. He's the one we compromise the very things we said we'd never compromise. He's the one that makes us settle for things we told ourselves we'd never, ever settle for. Because, why? Because he's the only one. He's the only one we think about. He's the only one occupying our minds. He's the only one we've convinced ourselves we're interested in. We can't even imagine dating anyone else when we're so into him. Oh, I know the inner dialogue very, very well. It usually goes something like this. I just don't feel right dating any other men when I'm so into him. After all, it wouldn't be fair to them, right? I'd only be leading them on or wasting my time because I wouldn't be into them. They're not him. They don't have the same effect on me. I don't feel the same way when I'm with any of them. I don't feel the spark. And so, we do more of the same. We repeat the same pattern over and over and over again because we know this time it's going to be different. It doesn't matter if it's the same pattern, ours and his. We think it's going to be different this time because we're convinced he's different. So we keep telling ourselves, this time is different, until it's not. Until it's the same thing all over again. Until we realize we just didn't see it because these things are never easy to see when you're the one who's in it. That's why it's so hard to be objective. He's gone or things have changed and we know it's the beginning of the end, and that's when we start beating ourselves up. We get angry, we get sad, and then we get very, very down on ourselves in the predicament we found ourselves in. We forget to forgive ourselves. We forget to see the lesson that's right in front of us. We take it all so personally and we wallow in that stuck place of shame and guilt of what we didn't do that never quite allows us to use this as a wake-up call that it really is. We're too busy spending that time and energy that we could be using to change this pattern, or on playing the victim, on shopping, obsessing, drinking, or eating, all those things that we try to do to make ourselves feel better, when a little acceptance, self-compassion, and forgiveness, that's what we really need. But it's a familiar place, so it's where we've learned to go. It's where we've always gone before. And our pre-programmed beliefs about life, love, men, and ourselves get reinforced that much more. It's so much easier to keep doing more of the same than to risk getting outside our comfort zones and taking a risk with ourselves. What will he think? That's our go-to. What will my friends think? What will my mother think? Here's the question you should be asking. What does it matter? So let's break this pattern once and for all. And here's one simple way to do it. You have to keep consciously reminding yourself that you don't really know him at all. All that you know right now is that he's triggered something in you. Something that makes you very, very attracted to him. It might be that he reminds you of your father in some way. Or it may be that he's the exact opposite of your father, as I've talked about on the blog, about your father-daughter relationship that can have such a dramatic influence on your adult love life. Or it may be that you subconsciously believe that you're not worthy of love and he feels safe because you know he's not going to be around long. Maybe you're afraid of getting too close yourself, so the fact that he's emotionally unavailable actually draws you to him. Or maybe you're just still trying to win over your inattentive mother, so his lack of availability gives you the chance, deep in your subconscious again, to try to win her over this time. But the good news is that you don't need to figure it out. If you do recognize the reason, that's great. But it's not necessary, because the important thing is that you recognize the strong attraction for exactly what it is. Some pre-programming that's being triggered within your subconscious that draws you to him. That's all it is, at least right now. It could turn out to be more than that, but right now you have no idea what will happen because you don't really know him yet, and you won't really know him for quite a while. I like to tell my coaching clients that you won't even begin to know him until you've had at least 6 real dates with him. And no, we're not talking phone conversations, email, and texting. Those are not real dates. And sleeping with him, of course, doesn't get you to know him any faster. In fact, it virtually makes it worse because it makes you feel even more bonded to him before you really know him. So how do you keep from getting too wrapped up in him too quickly? Well, you fill your own life so full with your own friends, your own interests, your own passions, that he doesn't suddenly become the center of your universe. He doesn't have the ability to do that because your life is filled up with so many other things. You're not looking to him to fill you up. And so no matter how much you're attracted to him, you continue to date other men. You don't sleep with any of them or even fool around with them, at least not more than what you're comfortable with. You simply go out with them. You date them. It's how you do this, because if you make this new man your one and only, even if only in your own mind, you can't do this. It's simply not how we're wired. That there's a huge difference in how this affects you. One is empowering, making you realize that you are the one doing the choosing, and the other is putting yourself on the begging end and hoping to be chosen, hoping that he'll choose you. Now, I know it's not easy to change your thinking like this, to not cringe at the labels that come to mind when you think of yourself dating more than one guy at a time. I know, because I used to feel exactly the same way too. But we're talking about dating here, meaning going out with a guy and keeping everything moving at a very slow pace. Because when you're dating multiple men, it keeps you from going too far, too fast with the guy that makes your heart flutter and triggers your programming. It allows you to realize that you need to get to know someone very well and over a long period of time, going on one-on-one, in-person dates before you give any part of your emotional, mental, or physical self away. And that's what matters. It's how you find out what's real and what's only another conquest for him. The slower pace allows you to find out if he's really the right guy for you, if he's on the same page as you, if he's ready for the same level of commitment that you're looking for. These things take time. You can't just rely on an attraction, chemistry, and sparks. Sure, those things are great, and if they're there, it doesn't necessarily mean that it won't work out. But if that's the only thing that you're looking at, it's not going to tell you what you need to know. There's only one way to know if it will work, and that's time. It's how we date well. It's the piece of the puzzle that matters so much because it keeps you from going there, to that place you know all too well before you should ever go there. And it allows you to get to know the real him. The one you might not have seen clearly when you were looking at him, up on that pedestal that you've put him on, through those rose-colored glasses that most of us tend to put on so quickly. It also gives you the chance to get to know those other guys much better, because who knows, you may find out that some of them might be a whole lot more attractive after a few dates. Now it's your turn. How do you feel about this idea of dating several men at a time, especially when you're very interested in one in particular? Share your thoughts with us down below in the comments or over on the blog. The link is below the video. And don't forget to click the subscribe button here so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. I'll see you in the next one.